I'm on a thread between life and death. I don't know how many I have left. Oh, I have left. When I breathe in peace. When I breathe out love. When I breathe in peace. When I breathe out love. It's been so long.
Hello, it's Chuck from Above the Basement, Boston Music and Conversation. I'm recording this on Thanksgiving morning of 2018, and while many of us have a great deal to be thankful for, no matter when you are listening to this, we should all try and remember those in need. There are many organizations that could use our help, like Boston's Pine Street Inn, which provides emergency shelter and street outreach to nearly 2,000 homeless men and women each day, and Bridge Over Troubled Waters, which helps to transform the lives of runaway, homeless, and high-risk youth with services that guide them towards self-sufficiency. There are countless other nonprofits who work to make the world a better place, so please reach out to your communities and help where you can. In that same spirit, we were honored to sit with the amazing Pardis Sabeti, who is doing her part to help those in need with her work at the Sabeti Lab. Dr. Sabeti is a computational geneticist with expertise developing algorithms to detect genetic signatures of adaptation in humans and the microbial organisms that infect humans. I only understand a few of the words I just said, but in simple terms, she's working to eradicate the Lassa and Ebola viruses. Dr. Sabeti completed her undergraduate degree at MIT, her graduate work at Oxford University as a Rhodes Scholar, got her medical degree from Harvard Medical School, and she was named a Time Magazine Person of the Year as one of the Ebola fighters. But perhaps the coolest thing she does is perform as the lead singer and co-songwriter of the Boston-based rock band 1,000 Days. So here is our conversation with Pardis Sabeti, recorded at the Broad Institute in Cambridge, Massachusetts. It's miserable outside, which is why I didn't bring the whole shebang that I usually bring. Because I knew I was going to be running for my life, trying to not get
Pretty
wet and melt.
Yeah.
So there's many reasons why I think we are sitting here. One reason is just because we love what you do, and it's very cool to be sitting here with Dr. Pardis Sabeti. The work that you've done I've heard of in the past, because I'm not in that direct space, but I live in medicine, and so I really wanted to meet and talk, and here we are.
Here we are.
Thank you.
Well, my pleasure. It's great.
Where do you live? You live right in the city?
Yeah, I live in Kenmore Square.
In Kenmore Square?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that place is changing a lot too.
We're
It
in
is.
Kenmore Square.
No, we're in Kendall Square.
Oh, where are we?
Kendall.
Oh,
Yeah, see, now you made me question myself for a second.
oh, Kenmore. Sorry.
Kenmore,
It does confuse
by
people.
Fenway.
Wow.
Yeah.
I used to live out there too when I went to Northeastern.
Oh, yeah.
Right after you get off of the Star Drive to go towards Fenway Park,
Yeah.
you go up the ramp.
Yep.
I used to live in that.
In those apartment buildings, I had
apartment
friends that lived there. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And I think congratulations are in order. You have a new member of the family.
I do.
A new
I do.
baby.
Yes, I've new.
Cheers to that. That's
Thank
really
you.
exciting.
Yeah.
What's the name?
Congratulations.
Liam.
Yeah, he's
And he's a
sweet peach.
small guy now, right? He's only like how old?
So he was born 3 months early.
We heard, yeah.
So so he's
3 months early.
Yeah,
Okay.
So 27
How's he doing?
weeks. He's doing great. He's good. He's a strong boy.
You're someone that I think that from day one you've been handling a lot of things at once. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I like to do a lot of different things.
Or doing a lot of things.
Yeah, but
with-
really one thing at a time. But
Yeah, and I read something about you that you moved here at a really young age, a couple years old, from
Mm-hmm.
Iran. You and your sister,
yeah,
she would actually teach you some school that she had already learned.
that's right.
And
yeah,
you'd be that sponge and
yeah,
learn what she learned.
That's right. I mean, we were immigrants, and we were kind of moving from house to house, and had a just sort of a chaotic but in a lovely way childhood. And one kind of thing my mom would do is she got a chalkboard and some like books from a garage sale, and had my sister teach me in the summertime. So it kept us boboth occupied. And my sister got really serious about it and made report cards, and we had PE, and we even had a musical that we
phys
did.
ed?
We had phys ed. She
That's
was
pretty
funny.
good.
She really took to it. So yeah,
You had a musical.
we even did a musical every
Like
summer.
at the end of the summer?
Yeah. It was like just with our neighbors. So there's I think like the dog played a part. It was a little bit.
Right.
So we did Grease 2.
Grease 2?
Yeah, kind of random, right? And
Yeah.
then we did Annie and Grease 2. Yeah, Grease 2, because I remember we just liked Grease 2 because there was, I don't know if you remember that movie, the end
I
of
do.
it. They're like in a float in the water, and we did that whole scene on the pool.
I don't think I've gotten that far into it.
Yeah, I mean,
Grease 2.
you have to really, but I think we chose it because of a couple of scenes that we were excited about. Yeah. I wish there was videos back then. That must have been horrible. It must have been really bad. And we were pretty excited because we took the dining table and we put like a cloth over it, and that was the changing room. I was the guy. I was not.
You were the guy.
I
You
was
were
the-
Danny Zuko?
no.
That did.
That's
Was
that's
Grease,
number.
so again,
That's
Grease 2
one.
was that British guy. Do you remember who was?
I
Yeah,
do.
I
I
don't
met.
Yeah, the
I-
exchange student
I've met
character.
that guy.
Yeah. That's,
You were that guy.
No, I met him because Ron. I don't know if you know this. I used to be an actor in New York City.
Really?
And we did a 10-minute play festival.
okay.
We had people like send in scripts and chose like 10.
Okay.
Then they would put on their 10-minute play.
Yep.
And he knew one of the actors in one of the plays, and he showed up. I'm like, aren't you that guy from Grease 2?
Oh, nice.
And he came in, and yeah, and he didn't want to pay. He didn't want to pay to get in, so we let him in
Well,
because
there
he
you
was
go.
famous.
Well,
But
we got to find him.
I don't know what he's doing now.
yeah.
But you both were, it sounds symbiotic. It sounds
Oh,
like
yeah.
there was some need each way and some joy each way.
Yes. No, we definitely both got a lot out of it. I think it helped her having to teach something. Obviously, it's a whole different challenge. You have to really understand it to teach it. So she got a lot out of learning to teach and really becoming expert in the area she was teaching. And then I got to learn stuff essentially like a year and 9 months in advance of when I would have learned it. So it was awesome. Yeah, no, we both got really into it. And then at varying times, Holly Hobby, she wanted classmates. So Holly Hobby was my classmate.
You get along with her?
We had a whole, sorry. She's a bit of a troublemaker. And then my cousin, when he'd come up to visit from England, he would jump in as well. My mom always would give us, we'd do book reports on, what was it, Encyclopedia Brown and like.
Yeah.
Are you a musical family?
No, we have a musical loving family.
Yeah.
And like a lot of my dad's side of the family just sort of sings and like hacks around, but nobody's really musical.
Except for you.
I don't know if I'd call myself music. I love music and I like
You wouldn't
to write
call
music.
yourself musical.
Well, I mean, I'm just not. I wouldn't make it in an orchestra or something like that. Like
Well, neither would
you know,
I, but I'm
yeah.
musical.
Fair enough. Yeah, so I think I probably got that from my dad's side of the family. They just all kind of inherently love to sing and be with music.
That's the main thing you do. You sing with your band.
I do, yeah.
But you play guitar too, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, I play lots of different instruments. Piano is the only thing I ever got trained on,
Yeah.
and so I can play piano. And then guitar and bass and, drums on, like, the Rock Band game. I love that a lot. I like that a lot. So
That counts. We'll count that.
Frankly, it counts, right?
Yeah.
You've got to get pretty good and you get pretty proficient, to
Yeah.
be honest. I actually, for all my nieces and nephews, I make them play Rock Band because you really learn the
A
drums.
few of the musicians we've talked to have music on Rock Band.
They've
Oh,
written-
yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, we got to get 1,000 days on that.
1,000 days.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So you did musicals with your sister back in the day, and you were learning math and science and other things. Was there something that you remember, or a time of your life, or something that triggered the academic bug?
I always joke that we're an immigrant family and kind of a refugee family. My sister and my dad likes to joke that he sort of gave us every option of what we could be in life. He's like, you can be anything you want to be in life, a doctor or a lawyer. So you just,
That was his
the world
delivery?
is, yeah, kind of. He used to always giggle and he'd be like, the world is your oyster,
As long as you're a doctor or a lawyer.
Yeah, and so my sister is a lawyer and I'm a doctor, but neither of us practice.
Right.
She does policy for Facebook, so she's busy
Right.
using a lot of her legal background, and the work I do uses a lot of medical background, but
Sure.
neither of us actually are practicing in the field.
I watched your TED Talk today. The thing that struck me the most about it is, first of all, the importance of the topic, because you're talking about a devastating disease. You're also talking about friends you lost to that disease. So it's a very personal thing for you, not just, certainly you as a scientist, you're trying to solve this problem that's killing
Yeah.
so many people. But when it affects people that you love and that you work with, I can't even imagine talking about something like that that's so personal.
Actually, it's funny because in that talk, I even sang in that talk, but they wanted
that
to.
wasn't in there.
I know they wanted to cut it down a little bit.
Well, I was wondering
Yeah.
because you started the talk with the villagers singing in
Singing,
the
yeah.
morning, and I actually thought there might be a thread back to
Yep.
that.
Is music something you were always drawn to, even though you didn't have it in the family? Was that something that you did through college and through all your studies there,
Well,
too?
I didn't actually ever do music myself really until I was in grad school, and two of my friends who were Americans who were there with me. We were at Oxford, and they would fantasy band. You know, we would all go to shows together a lot. So I used to go to a lot of music shows.
What do you mean fantasy band a lot?
Fantasy. I would just sit around and talk about their band name and the first songs and what the gig would be like, and they would have their guitars and they would kind of goof around on them a little bit and talk
like fantasy
about
football.
Yeah. So fantasy. Have you ever read the book King Dork? It's pretty amazing. That's a great book for anybody who likes music. But in it, King Dork, yeah.
Oh, okay. I haven't heard that one.
It's awesome. Really fun. Laugh out loud funny with some of their fantasy band names and stuff. And it's
we do it all the time.
People who just basically come up with a name and you're like, oh, this would be our band. And anyway, so Taylor and Bruce were the two guys, and they one night were just talking about their band, and I was like, you guys need to stop talking about it, just do it.
No fantasy,
why don't you just do it? And then they said, well, we'd at least need a rhythm section, and we can't just be two guitarists. And I was like, well, what does that entail? Even though I go to concerts, I never thought about the structure of music.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, a bass player. And I was like, okay, I'll go get one. Let's do this. And so I got one the next day with Bruce, and we formed 1001 Moose. I'm not sure why I have thousands in all my titles, totally independent, but 1001 Moose was our band name. And
1001 Moose.
Mm-hmm. And then we got a guy named Suguru, who's the actual most talented musician of the group. It was a undergraduate at Oxford who came in on bongos. Suguru Fruta. We had the moose heads. We had a whole fans that were that are our friends, but super fans.
This was at Oxford pre-MD.
Yeah, pre-MD.
The seed for 1,000 Days and the seed for music sort of stuck with you.
Yeah. So interestingly, I wasn't doing any music at all. There's no possibility of music. It was literally one night, Taylor and Bruce fantasy banding and me being like, enough is enough. Do something about it. And we just started writing. We never did covers because we knew that we'd botch the covers so badly that we'd know that we were terrible. So we just had to write all of our own songs.
I'm impressed.
Cool.
You immediately started writing.
Yeah. They did. It was pretty funny because I wrote one song, and I always tell people about the importance of just trying and trying again. Because I wrote my one first song. I just read an excerpt from Into the Woods, which is about this guy whose sort of pen name for himself was Alexander Supertramp, I think, and had gone into the woods. And but the guy who did Into Thin Air, same guy, right?
Jack Krakauer.
Jack Krakauer.
John Krakauer.
John Krakauer.
John
right?
Krakauer, yeah.
John
Not Jack.
Cocktoaston.
Right. And that's what Eddie Vedder did the music for eventually.
Oh, is that right? Okay. Yeah.
He obviously stole one of your songs.
Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, so I just remember I had this song called I'm Alexander Supertramp, and I played it for Bruce and Taylor, and I was so excited at my first song. And they literally came in, sat quietly, listened to it, and was like, okay now. And they just got up and left. It was never spoken of again. It was literally, they never...
Screw those guys.
No, it's okay. I think they went outside and laughed out loud, but it was a terrible song. It was a legitimately terrible song, and I think they just were incapable of telling me no, it's a no.
That's harsh.
It was bad. It was bad.
What was the genre of music that you wrote the song in?
I mean, I was trying to write. Kim Deal from the Pixies was my idol, so I was trying to write in her. I don't think she would have liked that song, but some of the other ones I've written since might be more.
I bet you would have loved that song.
My first song that I ever wrote that actually made it to recording was a song so it started from playing Gigantic a million times and then taking the bass line, moving it around, and going from there. So, and I remember because I kept thinking, I was like, if I write a song with the Gigantic bass line, it has to be a cool song. It can't be a not cool song. Because I realized that I was a very edgy, dark, moody music listener, but my inner voice was a cheeseball. And I was like, why is it that everything that comes out of me is totally cheesy? And so I was trying to figure out how to change that. And the way I was able to make that transformation is to just take Gigantic, move it, and be like, aha, that's how it can happen. And from then, I never had to do that again. I never had to try to start from one song, but that was the transition I needed. Yeah.
Dark cheese. How did you squeeze out the cheese?
That sounds horrible.
Yeah,
I mean, did you start writing more lyrics that were more?
I found my voice. I found my true voice. What's interesting is a lot of people who don't do music, who don't write their own music, they think it's a mystical thing. It's people don't understand how to do it. But then once you fall into it, then you can write a song about anything. It's just a language you need to learn and a way of doing it, and then it's really fun. It's not that hard. You just have to get comfortable thinking in rhymes and pacings and things like that. And then I was able to basically find my voice, and my voice is a little bit more moody naturally.
Is there a scientific element of songwriting, whether conscious or subconscious?
So the way I articulate it, usually when people ask me, like, what's the connection between science and music, is I say that people underestimate the creativity you need in science and the rigor you need in music. And you truly need both, right? So in science, you have to be creative at the outset. You have to think about the universe of questions that are out there, or like ways to explore them, and to think about, how you might solve a problem. But then you have to move forward, and you have to rigorously set forth a path to test that hypothesis, collect all the appropriate controls, gather the data, prove it out, analyze it. And then in music, same thing. You start off and you just start riffing and going in all directions, and you have a jam session where you just do all sorts of music in all places. But then you have to figure out how does it structure into a song. Then you have to lay down some 80 tracks and think about all the pieces and harmonies. And so all of, both of them require like that initial creativity, move to the rigor, and then creativity that you also have to come up with along the way as thing moves and changes.
Well, that's interesting because, we've talked to different folks in that space, and people relate back to Albert Schweitzer and other types of musician scientists that talked about that same concept over the years. It doesn't matter what generation we're in. And do you feel that when you're creating music, you're thinking about any of that? Let's say you're singing a melody. Are you just in the zone feeling the music, or are you kind of analyzing it from the outside?
In the initial stages, I just let it go where it goes, because the biggest thing you're trying to do is just find something that's meaningful or something that's good. And then you just kind of, you allow yourself to go off into the space to find the thing. And then once you find the thing, then you can just pull it together. And then once that comes into view, you can tame it. But I feel like if you try to structure it too much at the outset, you'll miss that moment.
There was a time that you mentioned you were in a exploratory phase of life while you were in Oxford. Was there a time when you were getting more serious about music and you actually thought, maybe I'll pursue this for a while? And that conversation you'd have to have with your dad?
Yeah, right. He'd be okay as long as I had the medical degree to fall back on. He was more about, having options. I would say that I never thought I would be a musician. It's just I wasn't trying to necessarily do that. But at the end of the day, I have a very, I wouldn't say very unique, but I have more sort of rare perspective as somebody who's working in infectious disease and around the world. And so it was just my way of being able to vocalize something I was thinking. I think it was just something I wanted to be able to do throughout my life. And if I had a little bit of success from it, that'd be great. But it wasn't something that I was going to rely on.
What's interesting to hear you say is that you went through more training and you got more chops, so to speak, with your day job in infectious disease research and genetics. You can emulate that with music. With that experience, it's like full circle.
Right, yeah. That's the kind of thing which is, I'm always trying to think like what kind of contribution can I have? And it is being able to link different parts, because I do both and live in those worlds. And definitely music is also just a really beautiful way to connect with people. And if you're thinking about creating a global pandemic response system, you want to talk to people where they live. And so, honestly, with those individuals that I work with in Africa, we play music together. And that's part of the connection, the humanity that you have to have in order to work together to solve big problems.
Sitting here in this room, watching everything move. I do not know how this city was built. We have forsaken to the sound of the light that goes, but we were born to radiate. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, 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 yeah.
During the Ebola outbreak, my colleagues were there for the summer, part like of a 7-week training program that we, already were planning and doing, we do every year. And the Ebola outbreak hit just as we were going into that summer. And we had already planned on the fact that we were going to record something together at the end of the summer. And so I had already started thinking about the music we could have. And we had decided that no matter what, every Sunday we were going to get together and work on the songs. But then the Ebola outbreak hit, and obviously there was a big question of, do we keep doing this or not?
Do we get together
Yeah.
physically?
physically, even, and they were doing the training. I was working with the research team to do some of the research that we put out that summer, and then also address a lot of other things going on. But no matter what, I just said, you know what, I'm just going to drag myself to the dorm where they were staying, and we were just going to do this no matter what. Sometimes you just make a choice. You're just like, this one thing will not drop. And you usually think, why? Like every Sunday when I woke up and I hadn't slept the entire week, and there's a million things to do, I was thinking, why am I doing this? But it just felt like the right thing to do. And this one particular week, we had just found out, all in very quick succession, 2 of the nurses at the hospital had contracted Ebola and then died. And then the head of the hospital, Dr. Kumar Khan, had contracted Ebola. And just a couple days later, my colleague in Nigeria detected the first case there, and we were sort of on a precipice of a cataclysm as Ebola had entered a city of 20 million. And so all this was going on, and I was Dr. Khan was on the other side of the world fighting for his life, and as we gathered together in that room, we started to try different music out, and nobody really wanted to be there in a way. Nobody knew why we were there, just didn't know what we were doing. Like, we were all just sort of like sitting in that room, and we played a lot of music that just didn't go anywhere. And then there's this one track that I'd loved for a long time of just a rhythm that simply the only thing I had come up with to it was just to over and over again say, yeah, 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 yeah. That was it. And I got the girls to start singing that, and we were playing the track. And all of these words just came right out of me. And part of that song says, it's a lifetime that we write, we laugh, we cry, we pray, we scream, we are love. And we strive, and our hunger will never die, and I'm in this fight with you always. It just felt like I was calling that out to Dr. Khan across the ocean and to everybody. And it was interesting because as I started singing that and they started repeating the words, just the yeah, yeahs over and over again, everyone's face lit up, and there was just something very healing about that. We just kept doing it over and over again. And at the end, I said, what came out of me was, I've had a lifetime to discover one truth, that I'm alive and so are you. We are here. We are the proof. So the song became one truth. I don't know where we're going to end up. I don't know what the hereafter is. I just know we're here, and we are each other's proof that we exist, and we mean something, and we're just going to just keep fighting. So that was one of those things, where it was good for us, for our healing and our maintaining ourselves, and it was a way of speaking to Dr. Khan and everybody else in the fight.
Did that repeat? Did you do that different days?
Well, yeah, so we kept kind of writing different things, but that was the one song that just we knew there was something important that we had to say. And so well before the Ebola outbreak hit, I had just sort of booked studio time, and that was something we set aside, and you just know something will happen and something will show up there. So we just went in and we recorded that song. In the middle of this outbreak.
In the middle of the outbreak.
Yeah. So it was like a week before they went home to Nigeria and Senegal. We went in and we booked this appointment, and we just were like, we're just doing this. And then we had the song recorded and finished. And then literally the night before they were getting on an airplane to go into the epicenter of, to West Africa in the middle of the outbreak, I just grabbed my camera and I said, let's just make a video. And we ran around the streets of Boston, and they brought and I said, just bring everything, color, all of your African gowns. And it's the goofiest thing ever. We just took a van and we just moved from place to place, and we're dancing in the streets of Boston, and we're dancing on the bridge and in Harvard Square, and it's one of the sweetest things I've ever been part of. But at the end of the day, if you have an event that's so terrifying like that, you don't survive by falling into paranoia and suspicion and chaos and fear. You only survive by showing your humanity and your strength and sort of power that you have together collectively. It seems kind of crazy that we recorded the song and went around and danced around the city of Boston, but that is the thing that sustains you when you're in one of the hardest fights you have.
Honestly, I don't consider that crazy at all.
Okay.
There are a lot of people who may think that doing music on the side is just like a hobby, and it's cute and everything like that. But the healing power of music and the importance of you going out and making that video, it might seem frivolous, but it's not. It's important.
Yeah.
And it helps you remember the people who have passed, or helps you remember to remain focused so there's no panic. I mean, you're talking about a horror movie.
Yeah.
Right? That's what you're talking. You're working in a place where there's death and there's sickness, and I can't even wrap my head around it.
Yeah.
So the sanity is in the music, right?
And it's been 4 years or so we have the luxury of time to look back. But the uncertainty in that type of thing, I can't imagine. It's not only their loved ones dying and that this is scary, but there's so much uncertainty in those times. And it's a mantra.
One of the things that I found really powerful and how I got really excited into it was I remember like on one of my first visits to Nigeria, I was in the sort of local hotel, and it was like 6 a.m, and I woke up and I just was like overwhelmed by the most beautiful music I'd ever heard in my life. I swear I gone to a lot of concerts, and I was like, what is happening? I felt like I was being transported to some other place. And I went into the lobby of the hotel, and all of the staff and the workers and the cleaners had all gathered around, and they're in a circle. And that's how they start their day every morning, is everybody gathers, and the start of the day is you do like 30 minutes of this beautiful music. And the same thing happens in the lab where we work as well, is that everybody gathers around and they sing to start the day.
Do you do that here?
I know, I love to do that here, but yeah. Actually, my lab does unbelievable things that you wouldn't expect.
I can tell,
Yeah.
But we haven't quite gotten that yet. That would be fun. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is there's so many things that we just don't do because they're not expected, but if we did them, we would love. And
Sure.
I know people would just love to start their day with a good sing. Like they're so relaxed, and to me it was very powerful that lab. I mean, they're essentially dealing with Lassa fever, which is a lot like Ebola every day, and many days people are dying.
That's Lassa, right?
Lassa, Lassa. Yep.
Can you tell us briefly about that?
Yeah. So
because I know you focus on that a lot.
Yeah, Lassa virus is a virus that's much like Ebola. It causes hemorrhagic fever, and it circulates in West Africa. And it's one of these things that's just not being diagnosed, and so people don't recognize how prevalent it is.
But while we're on that time period, at that time is when you were given the top 100 influential people at Time magazine.
I'm one of those two.
Yeah.
So really there's 2% sitting at this table.
Why is that funny?
No.
How'd you hear about that? Was this a surprise? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's funny because the first surprise was the Time Person of the Year.
2014?
It's 2014.
Right.
Yeah.
It was
That's sort of where the time connection started. And what's funny about that was that they were like, hey, we're just doing an anthology about the Ebola outbreak, and we just want stories from the outbreak. And so would you mind doing an interview? And I generally I wasn't doing many, but I was like, oh, okay, fine. Yeah, I'll do that. They're like, okay. And it was a rambling discussion, and then I didn't know, and obviously they couldn't tell you that you were in contention for the Person of the Year because there's got to be mystery around that. So I clearly didn't know that this was what this was for, and that shows because when you read my interview, it's pretty funny. Like, it's actually everyone's interview is kind of funny because it's clear that they don't know that they're being interviewed for this.
Interesting.
Or they wouldn't have said the things that they said. But mine, I'm talking about the fact that I like the movie Outbreak with Dustin Hoffman. I mean, I sound like a bit of a clown, but it's probably an accurate portrayal. But I'm talking about, the fact that I thought it was a great movie.
I read it, yeah.
And I
read your thing. And I like that movie, too.
Yeah, but anyway, but I sound a little bit clownish. But so that was definitely a surprise. And then they're like, hey, by the way, this was actually for Person of the Year, and you're one of the Persons of the Year. And then they followed up later and said, you're also one of the Time 100. The whole thing was really unbelievable and very kind.
Seeing it in the magazine must have been pretty amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I'm very conflicted about that because I had a lot of professional success on the back of tragedy. So that part doesn't make me feel great. The only thing that makes me feel good about that was that I got a lot of the credit for the fact. What was interesting is it was the fact that I didn't care about credit. So when we were in the middle of the crisis, we generated a lot of data about genomes that were circulating that would be relevant for policy in the outbreak and for science and all this kind of stuff. And it was a decision that we made. I remember going to the first author of the paper and saying, hey, we've got all this data. Why don't we just share it now? Because it'll take us a little while to get this thing published, and we just have to move fast. Is it okay with you if we just release all this data on the web? I don't care about the recognition, but I know you might. And he said, no, I don't either. Let's do it. And so, as a group, we just decided, look, it's far more important to respond to this outbreak than to get any little academic accolade. And then the funny thing about it is I got all of this recognition for not caring about recognition.
It's karma.
And so, so that part I'm proud of, but obviously it's a very conflicting kind of feeling, a set of emotions when you are recognized because something bad happened to people.
Belly's deep in my flesh. The raptor's
Other than your work in infectious diseases, well, we have in common the Time Person of the Year. We don't have in common, I have not fallen off of a cliff.
Count yourself, fortunate
I do.
for that.
This is not a metaphor. I know
I
you're
do,
talking
and I don't mean to make light of it. at
Yeah,
all.
no, it's fine.
But I mean, you had some serious injuries. I mean, you could have died, but you embraced a portion of it. There's a picture of you in a neck brace from the actual place where you fell. Right. That's the real picture of you at the base of the cliff. That's on that video.
It's the song Phoenix?
Phoenix.
Yeah.
Right. I thought it was really. I
Yeah.
mean, not many people would do that.
Yeah, right.
Especially you in such a vulnerable place and something that's so traumatic to you.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, I think that ultimately I am a sharer. And if I think it can be, again, contribute something. I was at a conference, as the Ebola outbreak was just winding down and I was starting to get full nights of sleep and all that. And I'd just given a talk that morning. Basically, the conference had a set of things that you would do. And one of them was a tour of the area. We were in Montana and they were just driving us around on a convoy. And I was a passenger on one of the vehicles. And in the middle of a switchback, there was just a freak accident and the vehicle went over a cliff. And it flipped and I got shot out onto boulders, and pretty shocking that I didn't just take my head didn't come off, but I did have a brain injury and I shattered my pelvis and both my knees in countless number of places. And
How far did you fall?
We went down a steep embankment and then the vehicle immediately flipped and I probably got shot out just 15 yards maybe. I wish there was a video, to be honest. Apparently I screamed saying nonsense I was telling everybody I love them and how much I loved everybody and thank you, and
Once you hit
yes, is sort of what happens, and in the middle of it I apparently was just gushing about everybody and then said somebody take pictures. So I just somehow said that I just want to know what's happening, so my friend took some pictures and that's how I have those. So I got medevaced out.
What was the last thing you remember?
So yeah, I remember being on the ground. I remember howling, and then I actually started singing a song that became my next song or whatever. But
you started singing
on the cliff. So I got medevaced to Bozeman, Montana, to get stabilized, and then I got medevaced from there to Seattle, Washington, to Harborview Hospital, where I had about 30 hours of surgery.
How long did you spend in rehabilitation?
4 months, basically a hospital bed or wheelchair bound. Inpatient 2 months, in a hospital bed in my sister's house for another 2 months.
Yeah.
And how are you doing now?
I'm good. I mean, I have an amazing group of individuals who help me do rehabilitation. So I had great surgeons, which is obviously really important. And then I have a group of people that I work with that are really good at getting out physical scar tissue and also real psychological trauma and all that kind of stuff, and brain. I mean, so I work pretty diligently still, and probably will for my whole life, because
Do you work with music therapy ever?
I don't, but I have an amazing singing teacher who I work with, who essentially is music. Actually, I should say I do, because she's a Berkeley music professor, but she's essentially a musical therapist as well.
Because we talk about this on the show a lot, and there's music therapy, and then there's therapeutic music.
Yeah, right.
Which is probably more.
Yeah, so Jeannie Gagné she's at Berkeley School of Music, and she's done a lot of things around wellness and music.
After your recovery, you said you wrote a song that was inspired by that, Phoenix? Or was it related to it?
I often talk about recovery from accidents, and I talk about how it's really important to give voice to your thoughts, from the deeply aspirational to the deeply painful. So there's one song that I called Breathe In that was sort of the aspirational, about sort of walking again. And the Phoenix is more dark. It also has a hint of aspiration at the end, but it's definitely, the dark thoughts that come in. One of my favorite parts of the Phoenix is a clip where I'm just doing these incantations that a lot of people have said sound kind of very Nine Inch Nails, like a hissing from the other side. And those were actually just random recordings I did from my hospital bed after one of my surgeries. And so it takes me back to that time.
What were the name of the people who like your band? What would you call them? Moosians?
Oh, my original
Mooseheads.
band, they're Mooseheads. Yeah.
So, Ron, I don't know if you know this, but I am a closet Sabetian.
Oh, I did not know that.
From the Church of Pardis Sabeti. Have you heard of that?
No, but I know
she is the next coming of the Lord. I don't know if you knew that.
Oh,
I did not.
There is a Facebook group, the Church of
The Church of Pardis? Pardis Sabeti?
Yeah. I want to have a Church of Chaclau now. because
You
I'm
should,
feeling a little
actually.
left out.
Wow, that's amazing. So people have like really supported you and
It's a very sweet set of, at the time, high school students. I teach an online
Right.
statistics class that's taught in a lot of AP stats courses as well as college-level stats classes.
In several churches.
Yeah, and these students are awesome. And I say that I have a small fan base, but I have the best fan base. Like that, my fans are freaking awesome. They're really smart, really sharp, really go-getter kids. So I love them. It's pretty funny.
Well, they love you back, apparently.
Yeah,
that's
which is really sweet.
That's great. Well, and we should mention too, I think we said in the beginning, you had a baby.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about a new chapter. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You make me feel very lazy.
Chuck, you cannot have a baby.
I can't, but we did an album. It's sitting on my desk for 2 years, and you're healing the world. You're having babies. You're falling off cliffs. You're making albums.
Yeah,
Getting
get your
ahead
act
of-
together,
I
man.
know.
So.
I know.
I really like the song Neda.
Oh, okay.
It reminds me of almost like a U2 vibe because of almost like the Sunday Bloody Sunday. I don't know the story of Neda. Is it an Iranian story with the revolution, or
I
it's
usually
like raise your hand, Neda.
Right,
It's very political. It seems like.
No. So basically, so during the Green Revolution, which was one of the uprisings of a lot of young people in Iran during one of the elections where people were fighting for their rights. A lot of the students took to the streets, and a young girl named Neda was shot in the streets. It was caught on video and shared around the world, and it went viral. And so you see her, dying in the streets, shot likely by the Iranian military. The interesting thing is the word Neda means voice in Farsi, and so sort of like this idea that trying to snuff out the voice of the young people. The nice thing is about doing music is that you have this language in which to say your thoughts. That song was born from watching what had happened and reacting to it.
All at once there, her voice was gone. As a daughter's soul passes on, that too early was taken from us, and a father cries in Iran. On the street
We would like to thank Pardis and her co-workers for their amazing work. If you would like to learn more about what they do at the Sabeti Lab, you can visit sabetilab.org. To hear her music, you can find them at facebook.com/1000daysband and also find their music on iTunes and other music platforms. Go to abovethebasement.com. You can join us on Patreon, sign up for our newsletter, listen and subscribe to our podcast, like our Facebook page, follow us on Twitter, and look at all the nice pictures we post on Instagram. We are everywhere. On behalf of Ronnie and myself, thanks for listening. Tell your friends, and remember, Boston music, like its history, is unique. How would you like to join us in creating great conversations that inspire and connect? Patreon is a membership platform that provides a way for creators like us to build relationships and provide exclusive experiences to subscribers or patrons. We have been self-financed since we got off the ground in June of 2016, but in order to continue to fully invest all we can in each episode, we need your patronage. For more information, please go to patreon.com/abovethebasement.